Android applications in Visual Studio, in our own emulator.
Yeah, so what I want to point out is that you can actually, just to expand on that, you can actually deploy to any of these platforms. So we have Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and Windows. For iOS, the special thing that you need is obviously a Mac. I don't deploy on a Mac, or I don't work on a Mac, but you can very easily select Mac. And how you can achieve that is that we have a node package here. So it's an npm package that you can install and run on your Mac. So it's you just kind of run it, and what it does is just a listener on your Mac. So whenever I do actually press this button and deploy to iOS, it'll just talk to your Mac and kind of push that build instruction, push that deploy instruction to your Mac. So you can actually push all your code, push this app straight to your Mac and run it from there.
Including debugging, which is pretty important. Yes. Like breakpoints and all those beautiful things.
So today we will select Android. And then these are kind of our emulator options. So Ripple, so we have kind of the device, so you can obviously push your app to your device that's connected on by USB. We have the Android emulator, which I don't think I would recommend anybody using because it's slow. We have Ripple and then VS Emulator. So Visual Studio kind of created its own emulator, and the difference between this and the Android emulator is that the Android emulator runs in a virtual box. So if you are to develop in both Windows Phone and Android, you'll have to always turn on and off Hyper-V. So in this case, when you use the Visual Studio emulator, you can actually have both emulators running at the same time, both the Windows Phone version and the Android version, without the need of turning on and off Hyper-V. So that's kind of the benefit of the emulator, and it's a lot faster. If you are to use like Genymotion, you can actually just run your emulator, your Genymotion emulator, and just set up the device, and it'll just push it to your Genymotion running. So today I'll just show you Ripple. So what Ripple is it's kind of I guess you'd describe it as a Chrome extension that emulates the mobile browser, the kind of mobile device. I would recommend using Ripple for a kind of initial UI design, but if you wanted to test your app's look and feel and how it actually perform on a device, then the emulator is the way to go, or actually push it to your device. So wow. Might be the Wi-Fi, maybe?
Yeah, it's a bit slow. It was a bit slow.
You do have another session open, right? If that might be the issue.
Let's close this.
No, another Visual Studio session where you are debugging live.
Ah.
Yeah. So you might just close that.
This is what usually happens when you code anyways. You bang your head on all these random issues that...
Yeah, so you have a second Visual Studio instance open, and that one is currently in debug.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, is it not? Okay.
Okay, one last time. Otherwise, I'll just switch to the emulator. I don't know what's going on. Anyhow, so we'll just switch to either of the emulators. KitKat and Lollipop. Anybody want to see this particular version?
It doesn't matter. Just choose anyone. So the thing that is nice about Hyper-V, it's essentially the native support for virtual machines. It's how we, for instance, run our own data centers. It's how we virtualize anything. And it's a lot faster because it's not just software-based. It's essentially trying to split up the CPU on a level as low as possible. If it can have split multiple cores, it's going to do that. And your machine has something that is the closest possible thing to its own dedicated CPU, which makes the whole thing pretty freaking fast.
Oh.
Yeah, resolutions.
Fit to screen. Okay, while the kind of the OS, the emulator kind of loads up, I just kind of want to show you how the emulator looks like. So being an emulator, you can obviously simulate. I guess it's not letting me click this while it loads. You can obviously simulate kind of the different location, the accelerometer data, the camera data. Oh, here it is. So that's kind of what it looks like. So you can simulate all these items. So okay, I'll just go through them all. Yay, hometown.
I think the location one specifically, if you want to show the location. So we're working on a bunch of different things right now. One of the things we're working on is like a connected car project. We're trying to make smart cars. Basically stuff a bunch of connects in a car and see what happens. And these things are kind of interesting because you can simulate all kinds of things. That one, for instance, accepts a KML file. If you want to simulate a certain route that your phone currently takes, you can do that. It's pretty awesome stuff. You can simulate certain battery cases. You can simulate various cameras. I like the network throttling. There's a whole bunch of stuff where you can just wire things through to huge amount of very detailed testing.
And then the camera. So with the camera, you usually get... Sorry?
Your application is live. I don't know if you were waiting for that. But.
Oh, yeah. We'll just kind of finish this off. But the camera, so you can actually get an animation, which is kind of this moving box that kind of moves around, or you can actually hook it up to a file or your integrated camera on your laptop or desktop machine. Let's kind of get rid of this. So this is our emulator running our Cordova app. I will make it horizontal. Yeah, so it's just hello, your application's ready. Pretty simple. I can do the same very well. I can very well deploy it on the same exact code on iOS, Windows Phone, and Windows. So it really simplifies your testing matrix. So you can just focus on writing your code and making it work, rather than making sure it runs on iOS, making sure it runs on Windows Phone. So just expand on since this is all HTML, let's kind of expand on creating what kind of development really looks like. Let's create a button that says,
are you going to do anything smart with that button, or are you just going to make a button?
oh yes, I want to hook up some JavaScript.
Okay.
So this is just a button, click me, and then it's the index.js is sourced, so I'm just going to index.js. And then here is a bunch of event handlers that are happening. So on device ready, it'll just run this function. But what I want is just to define the function. Document.get element by ID. Do you know what it was called?
My button.
Oh, I guess I should point out that since you're developing in Visual Studio, you get all the niceties of Visual Studio. So you get this IntelliSense. So actually, when I clicked on object, you get this add event list there. So you can figure out all the methods that you have available to you. And what I want is click, and I want to create a function called I'm not going to do anything special, but just like an alert window. Window.alert. Is that what it is?
You can just say alert, but that's fine.
Okay. And while that loads, the benefit of Visual Studio is that obviously you can, in addition to kind of IntelliSense, you get you can debug it as well. So we have breakpoints that you can set in various locations. So what I'm going to do is click the button, and then we'll just kind of break it into that method call, and you can just actually see all your local variables that you defined. So here's yeah, that looks good. Click me. And then, breakpoint. So if you have any issues, you can break and see your locals, see what's on this, I guess there's not an equivalent of a stack, but see what other variables are defined. You guys see there's an alert. So that's really it, kind of development to Visual Studio. But so what's really happening is that since this is all HTML, JS, and CSS, what your app really is that it's just a web view. So being a web view, what if your app needs access to native native things like an accelerometer or the mapping data location or kind of the camera. So there's these concept of native plugins with Cordova. So what that enables you is in your JavaScript, there's a common API that you can just code to, in which you can actually call the camera API from your HTML from your JavaScript. So
yeah, it's a pretty cool concept. It's essentially live web view HTML and JavaScript injection. So what you have for Cordova for all these major platforms is they have a common API surface, and that API surface might be, in this case, alert. And then in the back end, on the actual client, as soon as you compile the application, there's one major plugin written in native code, which injects a method into the web view. And as soon as that method is being called, the web view calls the host being, in this case, the application. And there's then native code that translates the whole thing into whatever native requirement might be there.
Yeah. Actually, on a tangential note, you can put, as I kind of said, you can put any JavaScript framework in here. If you notice, kind of our presentation is actually hosted on the web, and it's actually based off of Reveal.js, which is just an HTML presentation framework. So we've actually made this web app kind of a native app. So I actually have it built here as a native Windows app, as well as kind of deployed on my phone. So if I run this native Windows app, we got that same presentation experience. And so here's kind of the plugins that we were talking about. Here you can get device information. So right now, you can see that it's a Windows 64 box, it's running Cordova 3.7. Device platform is Windows. And if I were to run the equivalent on my native Android, we'd see Android information.
Can you deploy that thing to the emulator right now?
That's a good point. This one. So kind of while that loads, what that really looks like is we kind of had that same structure, like same folder structure, and what I kind of added was the reveal projects, which was the HTML